Started. So I am Sana James, Manager of Social Media and Digital Advertising at Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. And we are excited to introduce you to the Child Life team that works in the Eating Disorders Program and the clinical experts in that division at Cohen Children's Medical Center. So our panel today consists of Dr. Lauren Salvatore, Director, Dr. Sarah Meza, Psychologist, Rebecca Versace, Child Life Specialist from the Pediatric Eating Disorders Program, and Erin Tuttle, Lead Child Life Specialist at Cohen Children's Medical Center. Thank you all for being here. One of our interviewers today is the 2021 Local Children's Miracle Network Hospitals champion, Deanna, who is dropping by to help us raise awareness for Mental Health Awareness Month. So thank you, Deanna, for your help today. Go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so the first question is for everyone. What did you want to be when you grew up, and what is your job now?
So when I was little, I wanted to be either a baker or a marine biologist, which is a little bit of a departure from what I do now. I went to college and I did lots of classes, and I found out what I was interested in, and what I was most interested in was helping people. And the way I wanted to do that was through psychology. So now I'm a psychologist, and I'm the director, the clinical director of the Eating Disorder Clinic. And in that role, I get to develop our program and help treat kids with eating disorders, and also teach and supervise students who are going to be psychologists one day too.
That sounds fun.
It is.
When I was younger, I was pretty sure I was going to be a lawyer. Which is also pretty different from what I'm doing now. My mom always told me I was really good at arguing, and debate class was something that I really liked. And I also really liked the idea of, defending people in need and being a voice and an advocate for those, who didn't have a voice. But then I heard a lot of stories about, even if you get through law school, there's like really long hours. So instead I decided to go to school for 12 years and avoid the long hours. Don't know if that made so much sense, but now I'm a psychologist.
That sounds fun.
It is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca, and I thought I was going to be an actor when I grew up. I studied theater in college. I went to Performing Arts High School and then studied theater in college. And I thought I was going to be a theater teacher, and I did that for a few years. And then I got my master's degree in drama therapy. So using stories and puppetry and masks to help people express emotions and think about their behavior and feelings. And then I knew I really wanted to work with children in the hospital, that it was a very special place to be. And so I got my certification as a child life specialist. And now I'm the child life specialist on 3 Central, which is our unit here at Cohen Children's, where our patients who are diagnosed with eating disorders stay when they need to be in the hospital. And I get to work with them every day.
That sounds like a really cool job.
It's a really cool job.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin. So I thought I was going to be like Dr. Salvatore and Dr. Mazza. I went to college and I studied psychology, but the 12 years of schooling just wasn't for me. So my aunt actually introduced me to Child Life. I always wanted to work with kids, and she thought I would be really good in a hospital setting. And once I learned about it, I was sold. I went and got my graduate degree, my master's degree in Child Life, and I have been here at Cohen's for 12 years, and I have the best job in the world. I tell everybody that asks, I have the best job. I get to meet awesome kids and families every day. I get to teach them about the hospital and help them realize that this is a pretty good place to be when you need help. And I use that along with Rebecca, we are a team here on 3 Central, and we get to work with patients that are admitted for eating disorders. And I just feel so fortunate that I get to do this job every day.
That's a cool job too.
It is pretty cool.
Awesome. Deanna, should we move on to our next question for the panelists?
What is the best and hardest part of your job?
I'm going to start with the hardest part so I can end on the best part. So the hardest part is that kids who are recovering from an eating disorder, it's a really tough time in their life and often a tough time for their parents as well. So one of the things that we try so hard to do is figure out how to best support them through this time. So that is really challenging to see people go through a hard time. But on the flip side, the best part of the job is getting to see people get better. So to see the kids get better and go back to the things that they really liked to do before they developed an eating disorder, and the happiness that it brings to everybody in their families. The other best part is that a lot of families really struggle to access mental health care. And so we get to develop a program that helps people, it's evidence-based and makes it accessible for everyone who would like treatment.
The hardest part seems hard, but the best part is also really good.
It is, for sure.
I'm going to echo a lot what Dr. Salvatore said. I think that the best and hardest parts are pretty intertwined. And I think that's true a lot of times when you're working with people in the hospital, right? Having to see, you know, the tough time that kids and families are going through, and then also getting to help them, right? And see them get better. You know, when it comes to eating disorders, sometimes the kids and the families who come to the hospital when they walk through the door and join our program have already been dealing with all the like really hard parts and challenges of an eating disorder for a really long time, and that can take a toll. And so seeing eating disorders impact not just the kids who have the eating disorders, but also their siblings, their parents, the whole family system. And so seeing what's been going on and what still is going on when they start with us is really tough. I would say there's a lot of good parts about my job, but one of the best parts really is working with this team. We have a pretty cool team, and we work really well together. And because we're able to work so well together, we're really able to help a lot of people. So that's one really good thing. I think the other really, really cool, inspiring thing about my job is getting to see the resilience, right? Like the strength of a lot of the kids who come in and, with a little bit or a lot of support, are able to start taking back control of the eating disorder and of their lives, and starting the road to recovery. So that's really cool.
I agree.
So very similar. I think that the hardest part of our job is that when kids come into the hospital, they're feeling a lot of pain, right? And just like, if you come into the hospital with a broken leg, it's easy to see that pain. But if you come into the hospital with an eating disorder, it's sometimes an emotional kind of pain, and it can be harder to see. And so it's hard to see people in that kind of pain. It really is. And the best part of my job is I get to meet so many different people and hear their stories. And it's a privilege to witness their stories and have them share themselves with us, with all of us, and try so hard. And so the pain has the potential to turn into something really beautiful and strong when we all work together. Everybody here at the hospital, the patient's family and the patient themselves, we can kind of transform that pain, and that's really beautiful.
like that the pain turned into a good part.
It really can. And I second kind of what everyone has said. I think we're so lucky to engage with so many different patients and families. It helps us be better people. It teaches us every day something new and something we didn't know. Especially in the current climate in the world that we're in, I love that I get to talk about mental health, because it is something that we just don't have enough opportunities to talk about. So not only do I get to reassure patients and families that they're not alone in their experience, and that many, many, many people experience mental health illnesses, including eating disorders. But also I get to speak about it in public forums like this to help bring awareness to diseases like eating disorders, as Rebecca kind of hinted at, can really be unseen and therefore less understood. And I feel so fortunate that that is one of the parts of my job. But at the same time, can be difficult to help people understand mental illness. I think we've come a long way in 2021 from when I started 12 years ago, but we have a long way to go. But we're ready to fight that fight, and we're very excited about that opportunity.
Oh, Deanna, I think you're still muted. It's the joy of Zoom.
The next question is for Erin, and it says, what do you think all kids should know about children's hospitals?
I love this question. I think that kids should know that children's hospitals are here to help, and they're a safe place. And there are people here that can help a kid with anything they're going through. So Dr. Salvatore and Dr. Mazza can meet with kids about their feelings and their emotions and what's going into their illnesses. And Rebecca and I can teach them about the hospital. I think other kids should know that rooms like this, doesn't this room look really fun? We have the ability to allow children to be children. This is a hospital, but we play and we laugh and we have fun and we find joy in our days, which help us get better. It helps us heal. So kids should know that if for some reason they have to come to the hospital, whatever the reason may be, they're gonna get help, but they're also gonna find joy and laughter and fun and support.
I agree. And the next question is for Rebecca, and it's, what is mental health and why is it important?
It's so important. So when I think about mental health, I think about a person's thoughts and their feelings, both their emotion feelings and their physical feelings in their body, and their behaviors, what they actually do in the world, right? What they say and their actions and how they interact with people. And all of those things together make someone's mental health. And it's important for the same reasons that physical health is important, right? When our heart is beating strongly and it's doing its job just right, or when our muscles are strong and they're doing their job just right, it allows us in our day to do the best we possibly can. And it's the same with our mental health. When we pay attention to our feelings and our thoughts and our behaviors, and when we do things like get a good night's sleep and express ourselves and take quiet time for ourselves that help build our mental health and make it stronger, we do our best in a day. And that's going to make our days better, and it's going to help us do what we want to do in the world and share our gifts even better to the best of our ability, and that's going to make our world a better place.
I agree that mental health is important.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
thank you for sharing that. So our next question that we have is for Dr. Salvatore, and it's asking, why does an eating disorder develop?
A really good question. And I think we're still trying to understand a lot about it. But what we do know is that there's a biological vulnerability in some people, which is comprised of our genes and our brain chemicals called neurotransmitters and things like that. And when you add a lot of stress onto those vulnerabilities, some people develop an eating disorder. So the really important thing to know that just like everyone else is saying, and I liked Rebecca's broken leg analogy, just like a broken leg or with diabetes, eating disorders isn't a choice. It's an illness, just like any other medical illness. The other thing that's super important to know is that eating disorders can develop in anyone. So eating disorders can develop regardless of your age, your gender, your weight, your socioeconomic status, your culture, all of those things. So a lot of times people miss eating disorders because they have sort of a stereotype of what an eating disorder looks like. So we just want to keep that in mind.
Thank you. That is very helpful to know. The next question that I have is for Dr. Meza. What should I get help for this issue, or when should I get help for this issue with my child?
So assuming I'm speaking to a parent with concerns then, you know, the first step I think in knowing when to get help is, I guess, knowing what to be on the lookout for. And I'll go through like a couple red flags that can be helpful. But, you know, before we get into that, I just wanted to start off by kind of prefacing it with, you know, as a parent, you are really the expert on your child. And so if you have concerns, typically, you know, trust that intuition, trust that, you know, trust your gut, because eating disorders sometimes don't present themselves so obviously. Sometimes they can, you know, hide themselves. We call them a little bit sneaky, but it is important to be, you know, on the lookout and aware of any really big concerning changes that you might see, and to kind of figure out what's going on with those. So some red flags would, you know, might include a lot of weight gain or weight loss really quickly, loss of appetite, abnormal eating or exercise, unexplained gastrointestinal complaints, changes in mood, social withdrawal, dizziness, fainting, changes in eating patterns, obsessions with healthy eating, things like that, you know, and that's definitely not the whole list, but those are some things. And, you know, if as a parent you do notice any of these changes, it's really never too early to reach out to your child's primary healthcare provider and, you know, to bring up those concerns. One of the things that is really helpful if making an appointment, though, is to bring, you know, to come prepared, is to bring a list, to bring questions, you know. We can't really emphasize enough how important it is to reach out at an early stage, particularly with eating disorders, which can be very dangerous. You know, it's predictive of better treatment outcomes when we intervene earlier. So definitely, you know, if you notice any of those things or things that, you know, fall along those lines or concern you, reach out to your primary healthcare provider.
Thank you. Even though that's not the full list, it's definitely still helpful to know what to look out for. So thank you for that answer. So my next question is for Dr. Salvatore. How has COVID affected the eating disorder population?
So we're seeing about 4 times more kids in the hospital, in our hospital, and as well as our outpatient services. And some early literature and things like that have shown that that's both on the national level. So what we're experiencing is both on the national level and international level. So COVID has really increased the rate of eating disorders. And we think that's because, if you guys remember, I mentioned the stressors before and how that combined with those biological vulnerabilities can result in an eating disorder. So COVID has created a lot of stressors, especially for kids, right? There's been like worrying about your loved ones being sick, worrying about school being open or remote, and like just the general lack of activities and things that kids like to do. So we think all of those things combined has resulted in an increase in eating disorders.
Wow, that is definitely quite an increase. Thank you for sharing that. I personally did not know that it had increased that much. So my next question is for Dr. Meza. Where can I get more information on eating disorders?
That's a really good question. So, you know, it's really, really important to find, to educate yourself and to inform yourself about eating disorders, especially as a parent of a child with an eating disorder. And there definitely are resources, and I will list a few, and yes, there are more. But just to reiterate that parents really are, their kids' best ally in treatment, and definitely them taking an active role in the treatment process is needed, and has, been shown to really help. So some of the, I'll tell you some resources that we often refer to and use that we know can be very helpful for parents. One is the American Academy for Eating Disorders, and there's a website. And then there's also the National Eating Disorder Association. And then lastly, I'll mention there's a site called FEAST, which stands for Families Empowered and Supporting Treatment of Eating Disorders, which has a lot of really great parent resources like articles and questions and tips and ways that it can provide support and information. But really, most importantly, reach out to your primary healthcare provider. And, once you do that, you can figure out if a more specific referral to like an eating disorder specialist would be more appropriate.
Thank you for sharing those resources. After the live, I will go back through and add those resources mentioned into the comments so that everyone can access them. So my next question is for Rebecca. How does Child Life support the care of a child hospitalized with an eating disorder?
Yeah. So, as Child Life specialists, our job is to provide psychosocial support to children throughout the hospital for many different things. And we do that by providing education, helping kids understand what the doctors and nurses are doing, providing support during things like procedures or taking medicine, and providing normalizing activities. So like Erin said, the hospital doesn't feel quite so scary, lonely, stingy, and not child friendly. And so what that looks like for a patient with an eating disorder is helping them to understand why they are in a hospital and what the nurses and doctors are doing to help their body get stronger. It also means offering support during meal times, because for a patient who's here for an eating disorder, food is like medicine, right? Just like medicine, food is what their body needs for all of the parts of their body to work as strongly as they possibly can. And so Erin and I often are here during meals offering support and encouragement to help kids with that. And then finally, we offer things that help pass the time, help kids express their feelings, and like video games, like art supplies, like what else, Erin?
We do special events. We host hospital bingo,
board games. You name it, we've got it.
Yeah, pretty much.
To make it feel a little more child-friendly while patients are here.
Thank you for sharing that. Wow, the work you do is so important. And so I'll go ahead and pass off the remaining questions to Deanna.
Erin, and how do your teams work together to help a patient?
It's a really good question, Deanna, because none of us treat patients alone. It takes a whole team of people to care for every single patient every single day, during the day, at night, at all times. So Dr. Salvatore and Dr. Mazza and Rebecca and I talk a lot. We talk to each other a lot. We have a special app on our phones where we can text each other. So we send each other messages a lot. But as a unit on 3 Central, we have meetings. We gather as a group at the nurses station if we need to figure out what's best for a patient. We call them huddles. We have a weekly meeting. Dr. Salvatore and Dr. Mazza are helping the staff here on 3 Central learn better ways to treat patients with eating disorders. And not to get into the weeds too much, but they're kind of teaching us the things that they know and that they've learned so that we can implement them here on our unit. And then they take our feedback. So we tell them, this is working, this isn't working. And it's little things even like what time the food comes up from the kitchen that really can matter for a patient that struggles with eating. So it's a lot of talking. And if you haven't noticed, we're all pretty good at talking. And that's really what it comes down to. We have tremendous respect for our team and we're all really passionate about it. And that comes through when we care for patients and families.
Sounds like a lot of good teamwork. And the final question is for everyone, and it's what does change kids' health, change the future mean to you?
So for me, I think it's really important to think about both physical and mental health. I think a lot of times we fall into the pattern of just thinking about physical health, but mental health is equally as important. And by doing that, we're giving kids a chance to live really their best lives. And as they grow up, we're giving them the best chance to an opportunity to kind of give back to the world and see what they can accomplish. So I think that's pretty cool.
I agree.
So change kids' health, change the future. You know, when I think about that, I think about the last year, right? And how we all realized in a really big way, you know, really large scale, that health is really, it's like we need it for everything, right? And without it, kind of everything stops. The whole world stopped, you know, and when we see in the hospital, right, no matter what kids are walking in with, what they're struggling with is that with, you know, when health becomes an issue, then everything gets stalled. You know, the whole family gets stalled, the whole system gets stalled, life gets stalled, and definitely the future is something that gets put on pause. And so, you know, particularly with kids who come in with eating disorders, we see that a lot, you know, where eating disorders can keep kids and their families from life, from school, from success, happiness, friends, and planning, and all of those kinds of things. And, you know, being able to be part of providing the treatment that works and helps people, you know, is really incredible because it really helps us, you know, it helps children, families, and communities reclaim their future, right? Because it's the thing that has kind of gotten us all stalled. So I think, you know, that's how I kind of think about it.
That's definitely true.
So for me, change kids' health, change the future. So for me, every kid I've ever met has special gifts to offer the world, every single one. And when kids are healthy in their bodies and healthy in their minds, those gifts are able to shine through really brightly. And they are able to offer those gifts to the world. And when their physical health or their mental health is not, then that light gets a little bit dimmer because it gets so much harder to share that gift. And just like everybody said, that's not through any fault of their own, right? Health challenges come up all the time, both physical and mental, that are nobody's fault. They happen. But when we change kids' mental and physical health, when we help their mind and body be as strong as possible, we provide an opportunity for that light to shine through. And children are the future, right? And so our future gets so much brighter when we provide the space for all those gifts to shine through. And so I'm so optimistic, and I love what I do because I see so much bright and shiny and sparkliness in kids every day. And it's my true pleasure and joy in the world.
I agree.
And I think one interesting thing about, especially about working with patients that are struggling with eating disorders, is reminding them of their future. What I think we see a lot is patients, truly no matter why they're here, but specifically patients with eating disorders or mental health illnesses, they forget they have the option of a future. They forget that the world is at their fingertips. And so by changing their health, I would say if we change that phrase just for a second, we're showing them their future. And that's really exciting to be able to tap into those conversations, you know, with our kids that are in high school. What do they want to do after high school? And giving them something to work towards and to drive towards. And, you know, a lot of our patients have fabulous interactions with our doctors and with our nurses and with their child life specialists, and they learn that they want to have a career in that when they grow up. So again, introducing them to a new future. So, you know, health brings so many opportunities, but allowing kids, reminding kids who are struggling with their health that they have a future. And as Rebecca really said, the future needs them and their gifts.
I agree. I feel everybody's definitions were definitely true.
Yes, so thank you all for those great responses. We have reached the end of the time that we have for today, but we have received several messages from people saying thank you for sharing just such good and important information on this important topic. So thank you again for your time, to all of our panelists and to Deanna, and thank you all for tuning in.